In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, welcome to another session of Finding God. We are still on chapter 62, Surah Ash-Shu'ara, which means the poets. We have so far covered the stories of Moses and Noah and Abraham. And today we're going to be covering the people of Ad and the people of Thamudites. And then next week we will start talking about Lot and the Midianites, and then in the week after, hopefully, we'll be finishing this gigantic chapter. And after we're kind of done with that, I want to spend some time mulling over, going over the chapter, so to speak. Probably in the same week as I finish it, just to take away some lessons because we've crossed the halfway mark. So I want to now I want to see what happens, and I want to kind of collect all the things that we've learned so far. And obviously, wearing glasses because of the glare of the sun. I'll be starting in verse 123, and I'll be continuing till verse 159, where we finish the story of the Thamudites, and then we look at Lot and the Midianites next week. So here goes. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Last time I was around here, 122. And verily your Lord, he is indeed the Almighty, the most merciful. Ad people belied the messengers when their brother Hud said to them, will you not fear God and obey him? Verily I am a trustworthy messenger to you. So fear God, keep your duty to him and obey me. No reward do I ask of you for it, it being the message of Islam or of monotheism. My reward is only from the Lord of the Alameen, mankind, jinn, and all that exists. Before I continue, we have seen enough of the Quran to know the use of the rhetorical, lyrical, repetitive device. So this is almost word for word, if not almost, completely verbatim of what Noah said, what Abraham said. And I have a sneaking suspicion this would be what Saleh says and what Lot says and what every other messenger after that says. This has two purposes. One purpose is to tell Muhammad, peace be upon him, that this is what you would be saying. Believe in me, will you not fear God and obey him? I am trustworthy, fear God, keep your duty, obey me. I don't ask anything of you. My reward is from the Lord. And then small variations. Some will talk about doing trade. Some will talk about building palaces. Some will talk about traveling and having sons and money and something. But the main idea is to show Muhammad, look, you're not the only one. There have been others like you before. Jesus, Moses, Noah, Abraham, Noah, and many others, many big ones, many important ones. They've been here. This is the dialectic. This is the messenger with truth and the ancient context. We can see the same behavior with scientific discovery. It's not just religion, it's not just religious truth. Any new truth that confronts us evokes a resistant response, not acceptance. We don't say, oh, artificial intelligence, welcome, we've always waited for it. No, we don't do that. Oh, wow, the horse cart will be deemed obsolete. Oh, perfect. The car, oh, perfect. We'll welcome cars. We have always resisted anything new, regardless of whether it's technologically sound, whether it's truthful, whether it's beneficial. We resist. It's human nature. I would even argue it's animalistic nature. I would even argue that it's nature to resist anything foreign to what is known. And there's nothing wrong with that. I have to be clear here, I'm not justifying the pagan position in this dialogue. I'm only explaining that it makes sense why they would resist it at once, but after a while, they have to see the truth. Even today, there's so much scientific evidence with regards to whether it's gender or abortion or climate change or um, equality, equity, equanimity. There's a lot of research and rationalistic exploration of the subject matter, but people still resist based on emotive foundations, not reasoning. So it certainly makes sense. A, it is to show Muhammad that look, this argument exists. But B, if you read this in Arabic and you read through the chapter, and every 20, 30 verses or so, you see this couplet of trust me, I am trustworthy, believe in God, obey Him, I don't want anything in return. And it repeats 5, 6 times during a chapter, and that chapter is recited in prayer. And people who understand Arabic, not even Muslims, are walking and they're listening to it, or even if they hear it, they say, okay, fine, let them do their prayer. I'm not bothered by it, but I'm not going to become a Muslim. They're hearing it again and again. And after a while, the repetitive, rhetorical, lyrical device starts having an impact. And that device starts and ending up in the brain. It's almost like a chorus. I'm not saying the Quran is a song, however, it has a melodic element to it in its recitation, and it is poetry. So for sure, one can compare it to a type of song or a hymn because it is poetry which is recited with a melodic structure. And that's how songs kind of earworm their way into our brains, don't they? They end up there and we're like, this song is just stuck in my head. Now imagine you're walking around in 616 AD in Mecca. It's hot and you're walking and you're doing your things and you hear this recitation again and again and again and again, and you hear it. Now after a while you start thinking, who said that to me, that I don't want a reward? My reward comes from the Lord. Who said that to me? Oh, yes. Yes, it was being recited. Oh, yes, I remember Muhammad was saying this. Oh, yes. And after a week, you think about it again and you say, does that make sense? That does make sense. Does that maybe I should listen to a bit more. And it goes through. So because we didn't have the written text, we didn't print things out. And oral tradition is how ideas are carried forward. And even today, the oral tradition is much stronger than the visual, than the written one. Let me continue. No reward do I ask of you for it. My reward is only from the Lord of the Alameen. Do you build high palaces on every high place? Why you do not live in them? And do you get for yourselves palaces, as if you will live therein forever? Yes, I would say everyone who has ever built a palace has thought along these lines. And when you seize somebody, do you seize him as tyrants? So fear God, keep your duty to him, and obey me. These are rhetorical questions. Who is not expecting the people of Ard to say, yes, yes, we do seize them as tyrants because we are. No, no, no. It's a rhetorical device to make them see something. So when you seize someone, do you seize them as tyrants or do you seize them as lawful, just? That's the argument here. So fear God, keep your duty to him and obey me, and keep your duty to him, fear him who has aided you with all good things that you know. He has aided you with cattle and children and gardens and spring. Verily, I fear for you the torment of a great day. See, now here, the rhetorical device allows you to introduce a bit of variation. So some things are similar, but now we're talking about cattle and we're talking about gardens and children and spring, and it's a whole something is consistent and there is some riffing, there's some variability. I fear for you the torment of a great day, they said. It is the same to us whether you preach or be not of those who preach. This is no other than the false tales and religion of the ancient. And we are not going to be punished. As I said, this response is expected. So they belied him and we destroyed them. Verily, and this is indeed a sign. Yet most of them are not believers. Again, God comes back to the repetition. Repeat, variability, repeat again. And verily, your Lord, He is indeed the Almighty, the most merciful. And this is where the story of Hud and Ad stop. You see what I mean? The device is just that clear. There's no, one can certainly dig deep, but the overall message is very clear because it's a repetition of what happened to the people of Abraham and to the people of Noah and to the people of Moses and to the people of Muhammad. This is it's going to repeat again and again. Thamud, the people of Thamud, belied the messengers when their brother Salih said to them, "Will you not fear God and obey him? I am a trustworthy messenger to you, so fear God, keep your duty to him and obey me. No reward do I ask of you for it. My reward is only for the Lord of the Alamin." Again, exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. If it were a lyrical device, which it is, and if I were fluent in Arabic, living in the 7th century, listening to it, and I'm like, this message is somehow finding its way into my mind, and I don't know what to do about it. Will you be left secure in that which you have here, in gardens and springs and green crops and date palms with soft spadix? See, this is the variability here. This is because first it was cattle and children, and now it's green crops and date palms and soft spadix. And you hew out in the mountains houses with great skill. Now, this talks about the Thamudites, who are different from the people of Lot, people of Abraham, of Noah, of Moses, of Hud, all other people, because these people used to carve out their homes and live in the mountains with great skill. And if you believe it can't happen, I'm not saying that's where they used to live. Maybe they did. I have never done the research. But if you go to Cappadocia in Turkey, because I've lived in Turkey for 7 years, I know Cappadocia quite well. If you go to Cappadocia, you'll see that you can certainly carve houses in the mountain face and live in it. So for sure, that's what they did. So fear God, keep your duty to him and obey me, and follow not the command of al-musrifun, which means their chiefs, leaders who are polytheists and sinners, who make mischief in the land and reform not. They said, you are only of those bewitched. You are but a human being like us, then bring us a sign if you are of the truth. Again, look, I have said this before, this requirement of evidence is not unfounded. What is unfounded is not giving somebody an adequate chance to prove their case based out of emotion or insecurity. But the obvious response to anybody claiming anything is, where is the evidence? I don't fault any of the civilizations for expressing this response. What I do fault them for is remaining adamant in the face of argumentation and, in many cases, evidence. For example, in the case of Moses. The case of Moses is pure evidence. You look, my hand is shining. Look, my staff turns into a gigantic python and devours your magic tricks. Look, I can turn the water into blood. Look, there's going to be 10 different plagues on you. Look, I can part the Red Sea. And you still don't believe? Well, then it isn't evidence what you were wanting in the first place, was it? It's probably something else. You are but a human being like us, then bring us a sign if you are of the truthful. He said, here is a she-cow. It has a right to drink water, and you have a right to drink water each on a day now. And touch her not with harm, lest the torment of a great day should seize you. It is human nature, childish human nature. If you tell us not to do something, we're probably going to do it. And I don't know why we are this way. But we do this. It's very childish. And if you're telling, look, she drinks water, like you drink water, don't touch her. If you do, some harm will come your way. And they said, but they killed her, and then they became regretful. So the torment overtook them verily, and this is indeed a sign, and most of them are not believers. And verily, your Lord, he is indeed the Almighty, the most merciful. And here, I am going to stop because I don't want to cover the whole chapter in just one go. So, as I've explained, These are lyrical devices, rhetorical devices, and we have seen previous chapters cover these stories before, whether it's Lot or Abraham or Saleh or Hud or Noah or Moses, Adam, Joseph. Eventually, I think we'll also come to Jesus Christ. Right now, this is just a lyrical device, A, to help Muhammad strengthen his resolve, and B, to use the repetitive, melodic, lyrical, rhetorical nature of the Quran to break through the emotive resistance. See, if the pagans were men of science and they said, look, our fathers used to prostrate before idols and fire and the sun, but we are rational men, and if you bring us sufficient evidence, we will agree with what you say. Like the scientists would say. I'm sure if they behaved in this manner, the Quran and the message of the Quran, the way it is expressed to them, would be different. Or Muhammad's behavior would have been more evidence-based. Like, okay, cool, let me show you what I can do. And in our tradition, we do believe that the moon was split and things were shown to them and miracles were performed in front of them. But the fact of the matter is, belief is it's like a substance that is liquid until it becomes solid and then it's solidified. It's very hard to mold it once it is solidified. So even in the face of overwhelming evidence, people deny climate change today. Even in the face of overwhelming evidence, people don't believe that life begins at conception. There are countless scientific arguments to support a point of view, much more than the other ones. And people say, no, well, I don't believe it. There is overwhelming evidence to show that capitalism is superior to communism. Overwhelming evidence to show that. But we have every few years a rising band of communists around the world. How does that make sense? It makes sense in the manner that when we demand evidence, we don't actually demand evidence. We're not really looking for the preacher or the warner or the messenger to justify their position with evidence. If we were to believe, we would believe. And it could be through the simplest thing. By the way, Muhammad approaches me, Muhammad, peace be upon him, approaches me. Wouldn't that be a wonderful experience? And he says, I'm a messenger of God. I would be grateful if you could hear what I say and join me in worshipping him. And I would be listening and say, I love how you spoke to me. And I know you to be a trustworthy man. And I'm grateful that you took time out to shake my hand and give me some value. Of course, I would join you in your quest. That is how we make decisions. We don't make decisions with the prophet turning up and saying, well, I've written this book of evidences, I've published 5 papers. Why don't you read them and then you'll be convinced that I am a messenger of God? No, we didn't. Unfortunately, we don't behave like that. I wish we did. I would always value a rational, analytical world, a logic-based world, over what we have today, high emotions and irrationality and no clear foundation. You feel things. But because we live in this sort of a world, the Quran is not full of evidentiary arguments. And thinking, well, look at that tree and we made that. And if you cut it open, you'll see a silkworm telling you that there is God. No, it doesn't get down to that level, because the Quran knows, because God knows. And therefore God uses the Quran to approach people at an emotional level. Something beyond the rational defenses, because the rational defenses are always moving, growing, and shifting in the face of new evidence. So God knows that this is not how you convince people. People are convinced from here, not very little from here. You can look at Barack Obama, who has deported over 3 million people from the United States, who has the children in cages, was created in 2014 at the American-Mexican border. The war in Libya, the assassination of Osama bin Laden allegedly on the soils of Pakistan, multiple wars and war financing was during Barack Obama's term. But even when we see him today, we say, oh, he's such a lovely president, such a lovely guy. I'd love to watch a basketball game with him. I'd love to just go out with him and just have fun because he makes us feel good. And this is politics. This is voting. This is our sacred franchise. But we're not making decisions rationally. We're not looking at him and saying, no. He must be a good person, I'm sure. But, his actions are horrible. And he's done X, Y, Z. Therefore, I can't support him. We don't do that. We don't do the same with Donald Trump. The people who support Donald Trump don't care about the indictments and the allegations and the court cases. They're supporting him. And the people against him don't care about what he did with the Abraham Accords or with the border or with the economy or defense, and no wars started. They don't care because they feel it here. And they're like, I don't like this. The same goes with Imran Khan, or the same goes with Erdogan. It's our decisions are heavily influenced by our emotions. And I sincerely wish that they weren't. But that's just how we're made. So God knows how to appeal to his people, and this is how you do it. You don't stoop down into argumentation. You use these other devices, and they work. That's why you see 2 billion Muslims in the world today. I'm not justifying that all Muslims are great and wonderful. Obviously, they can't be. But what I'm saying is that the message has been reaching them. If anybody ever converts to Islam, it's very rarely, well, I've done a pro-con analysis between Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, and I've figured out Islam is the best. No, it doesn't happen that way. It happens in a very organic, emotional sort of a manner where the person says, hearing you and your message and these verses makes me feel a certain way. Therefore, I will become a Muslim. So that's the interesting part. I will stop here, and I will join you again next week, where we part 5 of Surah Ash-Shu'ara, chapter 62. The poets have a wonderful